Joining us today on the film room is Kansas State guard Ben Adler, coming to us from Pacific Sports Management. And Ben, I watched you over the summer, right? Because I do some work, with Pacific Sports Management, and I was approached about you to get an opinion on your play style and some of the things that you do, and if I thought that you could be potentially a good fit. And so it kind of came into this a little bit familiar about you, which is great. So I think the one thing that's really difficult to get on like a sports setup, just watching tape is the backstory, how you started, you
Yeah.
know. Tell me a little bit about how you got into football and how you got started, playing, and what kind of created and sparked that passion for you.
So I started playing football in second grade. My dad coached me all the way up until middle school in seventh grade. And starting out, I was a running back, fullback type, and a middle linebacker. And I was the biggest kid on the field, but I could run pretty well. And that kind of made it hard to tackle me. And then just kind of moving my way up to middle school, kind of switched over to tight end. And in eighth grade, I was about 6 foot, 200 pounds, 220 pounds, and still playing tight end slash running back, and then outside linebacker, middle linebacker. Freshman year rolled around, and I kind of switched over to just tight end and outside linebacker, and got to play some JV and some varsity as a freshman. And then sophomore year rolled around, and we had a lot of seniors graduate from the year before on the offensive line, and I was kind of hesitant to play offensive line at first. I would have been my older brother was a quarterback and a safety. My dad, his brothers, no one was an offensive line. Everyone was a quarterback, linebacker, safety type. So I was kind of hesitant at first to want to play offensive line. And then being 6'4", 275 pounds, 280 pounds, I fought it and ended up just saying, my team needed me, and I stepped up and played left tackle and defensive tackle. And my technique was pretty terrible, being the first year I had ever played offensive line. So junior year came around, and my technique was better, and I was sitting closer to 315, 6'4", 315-ish, 320. And technique was getting better and better, and that's when I kind of started getting recruited by K-State. Was my junior year. And by the end of my junior year, K-State had offered me, and I went ahead and committed right before summer. And so going through senior year, I had no stress to worry about where I was going to school at, or anything like that. I had a home, and I was 100% committed to K-State. And so senior year, I was playing defensive end and left guard at 6'4", 330 pounds, 325 pounds. And played football, basketball, baseball, and then reported to K-State in the summer of 2017, and then spent 5 years at K-State. And it was good to call K-State home for 5 years. It was made a lot of memories and had a ton of wonderful coaches that pushed me to be the best that I can be, and it was a great experience.
And that kind of makes sense too, because, back in August when I kind of wrote my initial report, that was the big question was, it looks like he has the tools. It looks like, the physical traits are there. It's everything else that comes with that position. It just looked like it hadn't quite clicked yet.
Yeah.
And, you took a step forward this year, which was really good, especially as a pass protector. But before we kind of start really getting into some of this tape and everything else, um, I went ahead and pulled up all your stuff, pro day measurements and workout stuff, which, you weighed in at 337, right? So
Yep.
what's your comfortable playing weight?
These next 2 months before the draft and mini camps and all that stuff, I've talked to our nutritionist at K-State, and been talking to the K-State strength coaches because I'm back in Manhattan working out right now.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to be closer to 325, 330 in that range by mini camp. I think probably my best playing weight is right around 325, 320, somewhere in that area. And I've been cutting back and eating pretty light, and just kind of maintaining muscle, losing fat, just kind of trimming down and doing stuff like that. So
So that's probably about what you were playing at this past year, was about right there at 325, right?
I was closer to probably 330 in the season, but yeah, right around 325, 330.
All right, cool. And I thought the numbers weren't, they're not terrible, considering that you weighed in a little bit heavier than everybody anticipated. Um, at least what the report that I've got at a 5.2840, so that's not terrible. I think it was a 1.95 10-yard split.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I mean the 23 bench press reps, that's helpful too. So some people put a lot of stock in those numbers, you know how it is. Some people don't. I'm kind of okay, it is what it is, whatever. But we're going to watch tape, and that's how we're going to figure out what you're good
Okay.
at. Anyways, all right, so the first game I wanted to pull up, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the screen. First game that I wanted to pull up was this West Virginia game from 2020. This is the first tape that I watched on you. Going back, it was probably about August. Now, get through this first play. Can you see that okay, man?
Yeah.
All right, good. So it was on this drive is where I think it's going to be play 3 coming up here, which I guess I can skip forward into it a little bit. Yeah, this one right here. It's 3rd down and 10. And you got a stunt right there, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of this is one of the first things that I noticed, right? They're going to bring, I think that's Bartlett, correct? Bartlett had like a 3-sack game against Virginia Tech last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they're bringing Stills along the outside. And, Stills is going to be an NFL player. I'm pretty sure you know that better than anybody.
Yeah.
So what it kind of looked like looking at the tape here is you recognized it just a tad bit late, and Bartlett's quickness kind of got past you.
Yeah.
And of course, Howard makes a really bad throw, it gets picked off. So what, I guess, I don't know if you remember this play specifically. This is 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What are the things that you kind of start to take away when you see something like that in the film room, right? When the coaches kind of start getting into you.
What killed me right there is I opened up my inside hip and kind of gave him a rush up field. And yeah, if you can go back a little bit, you can see it right. Yeah, play right there.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Yep, because you
So I
turned.
so I have my knee to his crotch already, and I pass him off to, I think that's Cooper Beebe over there.
Yeah.
And then DN comes inside, and if you play it a little bit, you can see me right there open up my hip, and that's where I screwed up immediately. Right there, I was in trouble when I opened up my hip and leave a pretty much a straight shot at the quarterback.
Yeah, and I think the recognition was, that was kind of like the positive thing. It was one of the first positives. It was kind of like, okay, well, you saw the stunt coming, you tried to pass him off, you picked up that side, but it was just a second late. And I think that's kind of where that experience comes in that you were talking about, where you haven't played this position for very long, you
Yeah.
know. Now, another thing that I noticed is you guys run primarily, it's a man blocking scheme, correct?
We run, I mean, a variety of schemes, whether it's man, gap, zone. We kind of just go off of game plan, what the defense looks like. Where does the defense have issues? Do they have defense, or they have issues with an A gap power or more of a C gap power? Do they have issues with inside zone fitting gaps and stuff like that? So we kind of just depend on a week to week basis on what the issues are with the defense we're going to be going against.
In this game particularly, like I noticed, and then watching like Nevada this past year too, you guys you guys run a lot of, pull and those types of concepts too. I mean, you guys like to run the ball, so that kind of helps you out, because you're kind of that mauler type that gets downhill and you get your hands in a good spot in the run blocking fits. But so how many different sets did you guys have? So whether that be a protection, whether that be, a run blocking set, how many did you how big was that playbook?
So it wasn't super complex, but we had, I mean, that last play was they basically roll out to the left and we sell action to the right. And then we had like split protections when we have a 3-man slide going one way and then the other side's locked, and then we have a running back involved, so it's a 6-man protection sometimes, and then we have like full gap slide protection. So I mean, I think all together we probably had probably 7-ish, 6 or 7.
Okay. And you guys would run the pulls. You're talking about this one right here, right? This is what you're talking about. Or is it the next play?
Um, yeah, so when
Yeah.
everyone runs out to the right, he goes out to the left, and our goal on that is for left tackle to sell it and climb a little bit to get that defensive end to close, so the quarterback doesn't have a defensive end right in his face.
Right.
But yeah, right there, the defensive end played it pretty well and could kind of
Was
see
that
it.
Bartlett again?
I think so.
Yeah. Number 10. That man was a killer.
Yeah, he
Like
was
I watched him a lot because of the Virginia Tech game, and I think he won the Nagurski Player of the Week that game. And
mm,
you know, anyways, as a guy kind of familiar with him, always like, yeah, he's always blowing up something. Okay, so I kind of asked you a little bit about this over text, but what's the difference between when you have, you know, for you as an offensive lineman in the team, when you have a true freshman quarterback like Will Howard right here, instead of, your veteran Skylar Thompson?
so going into the 2020 season with Skylar being healthy and stuff like that, um, it helps the offensive line play with a little more confident. Granted, Will Howard was put into a terrible situation. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being um, first year out of high school, an 18-year-old kid, not developed, still maturing, getting used to the new speed of Division I football. So I'll never talk bad about Will because he was put into a terrible situation, and
Yeah,
I
no, absolutely not.
thought he did. Say what?
I said, yeah, no, absolutely not. Like I get you 100%.
But I mean, you could kind of tell that it was kind of thrown off a little bit when Skylar wasn't in the game. Just the communication thing, and just having Skylar in the game, having his experience and stuff in the pocket, being comfortable to stay in the pocket, knowing when to roll out, and having, I don't even know how many games he had under his belt at that point at the beginning of the 2020 season, and probably like 20 or 30. But having that compared to a guy that just got done, I mean, just finished high school, is difficult.
So how does that change your mentality, right? Specifically.
So with Skylar in at quarterback, I mean, he can see stuff that a high school quarterback that just finished up high school and just now is getting to college won't see. He'll see pressures coming. Like on this play, you can see there's a stack over there above that wide receiver, and Skylar might see that and say, "Hey, we might have pressure coming over there," or he might see this stack down at the bottom of the screen where Deuce Vaughn is kind of rolling back to the left and say, "Hey, we might have somebody coming off the edge," and he might see stuff like that that a younger, inexperienced quarterback might not see, and they ended up not coming on there. But
Yeah, you guys brought the reverse action, so they kind of read that pretty well. It looks like somebody wanted to, though.
yeah,
See, that's one of the things I think that you do well right there. You kind of sell it like you're just kind of settling. What would you, I'm 5'6". When I was in high school, it was like 150. So I know what I know from offensive linemen is just listening to people. What do you call that?
on that last play,
Yeah, that little thing that you did right there.
kind of just like a seal block out to the right, and or no, that's me pulling. That
I know
looks
it's
like
a pull, but
post.
it's kind of almost like you're doing it. You're looking for the guy right there, bam. Because normally when you're pulling, you're going straight downhill with force, and right there you're moving laterally.
So
rather
that's
than
another one of our A gap type powers that also has the option. It's a read basically. You're reading the defensive end, and if the defensive end runs down and runs into me, it's an automatic give. And so right there, defensive end spilled it and ran towards me, so I ended up just taking the D end. And usually on that, I don't mess with the D end if I can climb up without any issues, and I just go to the linebacker. In this case, it would have been number one.
yeah, I think your lateral quickness is kind of where your strength is right there. Like you got good feet through that. That's probably the best that I've seen your feet right there. Um, when you're making that kind of a pull. So, and that's valuable too, just because that can translate over into your pass set
Yeah.
and adjusting to speed or rushes or whatever else like that. So that's why I kind of noticed that thing. Um, so your hand technique. Oh, that was just a terrible throw. Sorry. Um, so because you didn't play the position for very long, but you said you played, your linebacker defensive line, right?
Yeah.
So what was the adjustment like, going from playing that on that side of the ball to the other side and having to learn that hand fighting that comes with that?
I mean, in high school, I mean, it is nothing compared to Division One, especially like when it came to 4A, 3A, Division Two,
Right.
stuff like that. You're facing guys that, I faced defensive ends that were 190 pounds, 180 pounds, and at the Division One, Power Five level, I mean, you're facing D ends that are 270,
Yeah.
260, and are faster than most. And so, I mean, in high school, I didn't really get taught a lot about hand fighting. I had to kind of learn that when I got to K State. And it definitely was something that I had to focus on because I have pretty good hands, but I hadn't worked on it very much. So I had to kind of perfect my craft and get better with the hand fighting because it is very vital in pass pro and even sometimes in run blocking with defense alignment, swiping your hands away, trying to get around you and stuff like that. So it was something that I had to really focus on and get better at to be ready to play against those opponents.
And that's one of the things I think I haven't seen it on this tape. I've noticed it, this past year that you've kind of developed really well is a really solid stiff arm. Especially in your pass protection sets. I think it was like the second or third snap against Nevada when you guys played. You just came straight out. I think it might have been the first, might have been the touchdown to Josh. Yeah, and I noticed that straight off because even from the sideline cam broadcast tape, like you dropped into your set, you anchored, you planted really well, and you just had that. Not, I think you were blocking 99, who I think I was looking at him too, but straight up stiff arm, stonewalled him, 300 pounds, 320, whatever he was.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that you've developed that over the last year. So talk about some of the different things that you've been working on developing specifically with your handwork and the technique and stuff that I'm probably not picking up.
So with I focused more on my senior year with it. I did it a little bit my junior year, but our offensive line coach he really liked the independent hands. You throw that first initial punch with your outside hand and leave that inside hand available just in case they counter inside. And I mean, because if you shoot both hands at the same time, you're susceptible to getting your hand swiped away or something like that. If you throw one hand and they swipe it away, you still have that inside hand just in case they
Yep.
counter inside or something like that. So I focused more on that in the off season going into my senior year, and I thought I did pretty well with it going into my senior year and throughout my senior year.
So what are you working on right now specifically to try to get ready for minicamp?
So when I was down in Fort Myers, I worked with a coach, offensive line coach Eugene Chung, and he was kind of doing a little bit of both. He had seen me doing independent hands, and he's like, "All right, we can see you're comfortable with that. Why don't we work both hands? Because in the NFL, not as many guys do independent hands. They do both hands because the defenders are bigger and stronger and faster, and you might not be able to stop a defender's rush with one arm. So he kind of had me working a little bit of both independent hands and two-hand punch at the same time to kind of just be comfortable with both. And I think, honestly, with working independent hands, it helps me with maybe playing center too, because it gets me like an offhand or something like that. And I worked at left guard, center, right guard, just getting comfortable at every position, independent hand, two-hand punch. I mean, just kind of trying to get comfortable with everything.
Have you gotten the opportunity to take any center snaps
I did a
recently?
little bit of I didn't snap at all on pro day. Granted, I don't think we did many snapping. I didn't think even our center didn't even snap the ball very much. We kind of just were doing drills to see how you can open up your hips and
Yeah.
change of direction type stuff. But I snapped a little bit when I was down in Florida and have been working on snapping to make sure that if that opportunity arises, that I'm not sailing the ball over somebody's head or floating it back there and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would help you, because you know this as well as anybody, but just say it for viewers and stuff, but having that versatility is so valuable at the next level because you can only have 53 guys on a, roster
Mm-hmm.
and 45 of them are active on pro day. And so when you put that into perspective, that leaves you with 6 or 7 offensive linemen at top 8 at tops that you
Yeah.
have, and you're playing 5 on the field. So if you got some injuries, you want to have some guys that are in the back and kind of rotate around. They could play, a bunch of different positions. So that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you're working out at the center position. So as you can
And that
see,
was, oh, okay.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and that was kind of one thing that that Coach Chung said was NFL teams don't want a guy that can play one position. They want somebody that can fill in and play as many positions as possible. And yeah, I'm not the average tackle, so I mean I don't have a ton of experience playing tackle at the college level, but I mean I think I can play left guard, center, right guard, and if I'm thrown in there, I can do my absolute best to play right tackle or left tackle. I think I have good feet, but the thing that might hurt me there is I don't have the longest arms in the world. But
Hmm. They're not terrible. It was what, 32, right?
yeah, it was 32 something.
Which is not, it's not terrible. 32.68 is what I got. So 3/4. It's almost 33. It's not terrible, but I get your point. Um, as you can see, we've got Iowa State pulled up on the screen. This is 2021. This is going to be pretty much majority passing reps. And so this will really be a good opportunity to kind of point out some more of this handwork and different stuff that you're kind of doing and talking about, because this is just, as you can see, you might be able to see it, Skylar Thompson. Um, my tape sources don't have a lot of really great options when it comes to Kansas State in 2021. So I'm doing the best I can with what I've got.
Okay.
But I believe this is, I need to go back and look. I forget what down it is. 3rd and 4, first quarter. It's probably your first pass play of the game. I think he probably ran it a couple times with Vaughn.
Yeah.
And yeah. That's a big dude you're blocking right there.
Yeah, I don't know his measurements, but he was a big guy.
I believe he just played at the Senior Bowl. If it wasn't the Senior Bowl, it's a Shrine Bowl. He's got what's his name? Dang it.
I don't know his name, but I know that he's about 6'6", 6'7". I think he was 330 this year, 320, somewhere around there. Because I remember looking at him on the scouting report, and he had really, really long arms. So that was something.
Yeah.
I had to
6'5". I got 6'5.5", 319, 85 and 5/8 wingspan, 35 1/8 arms. Yeah. Ioma. Man, how do you say this? Wuzurike. Yeah, he played at the Shrine Bowl. And
Yeah.
no, that's a big dude. So talk a little bit about what your strategy was coming into this game, knowing that you were going to have to block this guy.
Strategy going into the game is I knew I needed to get my hands on him and don't let him sink a long arm into me, because if he got his long arm stuck, there's not much I can do except try to chop it, because I can't refit my arm because he has about 2 inches on my arm. So right there, noticing it looks like it was a slide left, but center was giving me help for a 2-eye. So he had his eyes to the left and kind kind of just giving me a hand on that big guy. So
Yeah, and Rose came late, so he had to pick him up.
yeah, so I ended up kind of doing a post set down on him and trying to stab him with my inside hand. And basically, after I get locked up with him, don't let him get extension and kind of get into a bull hop.
I really like your footwork here because you are going up. This guy's massive,
Yeah,
and he is power. And I mean, I think that that step from your inside foot kind of there was bad, but outside of that, like keeping your feet moving, chopping, all that good stuff.
I think I probably could have had a better stab with my inside hand. It looked like I clamped a little bit.
Yeah, it's your first pass rep against him, so I'm gonna cut you some slack. I'm not the coach in the coach room though, so yeah, and Skylar just kind of sailed that one. Oh well. Which, you know, you had some hustle there. I kind of noticed that too when I was watching this earlier. It's like, oh, okay, there's a little bit of hustle there. There's a little bit of, hey, I'm gonna go knock this guy's head off. You're think that is that Josh that got in the way?
Yeah, I was talking to him. I was like, man, get out of my way, dude.
You and Josh are really, really close, right?
Yeah, we it's kind of funny. I told him probably 2 or 3 years after we were friends, we met at a rivals camp our junior year, and Josh has kind of a mean resting face. I know that there's some words to describe that, but a mean resting face is what I'll go with.
Okay.
And I remember looking at him, and I was standing next to my dad. I'm like, hey, I think that's Josh Rivas right there. And he was sitting there looking angry and everything. And it's like, dude, why does he look like that? And I kind of told him, like, and I told him 2, 3 years later, I was like, yeah, first time I met you, I didn't really think I was going to like you very much. You kind of look like a mean person for no reason. But, yeah, I mean, became really close our freshman year, and when we were in the dorms, and then ended up having a house together for the next 4 years. And yeah, I mean, he's probably going to end up being one of the best men. I have an older brother; he'll be one of the best men also. But being one of the best men in my wedding one day, and yeah,
And he's also being looked at. He's in this draft class, and I know there's a lot of attention on him too as a prospect playing at the next level.
yeah,
So this one, you guys just got a really good stunt there.
yeah. So we had a match call. Looks like it was a 50 protection with Deuce Vaughn getting out, and it just being a 5-man protection. And with that wide 3 and that wide 9 out there, I was expecting more of a twist between those guys, trying to
Yeah.
get one of us to open up. So I was kind of caught off guard a little bit on the inside twist. And you can see I didn't open up my hip good enough on that. And he beat me to the inside.
That's a really interesting stunt, and it's because you got your 3 tech right here, right?
Yeah.
0, and that's your 2 I, or no, 2-0, so almost a 3. So right again, just across the board, all this congestion, and they got you really good trying to.
Anticipate. Yeah.
Yep, and then couldn't quite pull off the swap because the center didn't see it coming at all. Is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
You saw it coming. You were trying to pass him off. He wasn't ready for it. So there's one of your slides again. And I think this is a touchdown. So what is your role specifically on a slide? Like, what are you trying to sell?
So right there, we're trying to sell outside zone to the left, and Skylar's going to fake the handoff to our running back Joe Irvin right there, number 20. and he's going to fake the handoff and roll out to the right. And right there, it looks like our tight end, Ben Sennett, is going to block the defensive end. And yeah, they just have a route concept between the wide receivers. And I didn't see if the tight end on the left ran a route or not. But
I think I didn't see either. So, okay, that's another thing right there for you. Because when you guys dealt with an adjustment like that, the little switch from the defensive line, they shoot over and shift. Does that do anything to you, in terms of your protection and what you're planning to do?
so beforehand, when I had I think it was a 2 on the left, and then that kind of, like 4-eye 3 on the right, I have an open gap, and I have 3 yards to work with before I get a penalty for going upfield during a pass. So what I'll do is I'll kind of run down and maybe climb a yard or two and kind of get that defensive end to close and make the right tackle's job easier. And then when they switch over into that more of a straight Okie front, now I have a guy in my gap and I have to actually sell zone and try to get across and block that guy. I don't want to get all the way across and try to get him hooked because then he has a clear open run at the quarterback. But I kind of want to block him and push him to the left, but try to make it look like I'm trying to run outside zone.
So that just comes with experience, knowing what you're doing with that, right? Like
Yeah.
because you have what, 1 second to figure that out before the ball snapped. Because because you just explained you're going to work up into that, a couple of yards up and try to make the job easier for the right tackle. But that shift happens literally. You have about 1.5 seconds to make that adjustment after they make that shift.
For like linebackers, if I just turn and look, and I don't know if I did it right here or not, I tried to, with him in my gap, I didn't really look up at the linebackers, but when I would have an open gap, saying like a 4-man front, and I had like a backside 3, I'd kind of pot to the right tackle and I'd start looking at linebackers. Because if you're just running down the line, looking straight down the line, not looking at linebackers, you're not fooling anybody. You got to like look at the linebackers like you're trying to go to them, and then that'll make them sink a little bit, sink down into the line of scrimmage, and get that crossing route, whether it's from a tight end or one of these wide receivers running a crossing route right across the middle of the field. It kind of creates some space for them to work.
And that's just something that comes with experience and kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't. Yeah, now the 54's in the game. So I'm going to skip past all this. Now I noticed that you guys would swap out sometimes. Was that just you guys thought you had a better personnel match or something?
No, it kind of just depended on getting Hadley Panzer, getting him some experience, getting him some reps, and giving me a time to go get some water or something. I didn't really think I needed to go get water, but yeah, but kind of get him in the game and get him some experience, because going into I think it was 2020, we had replaced 5 starters, and the only guy that had significant minutes was Josh Rivas.
Yeah.
And everyone else had played in a few games, but they were not really close games.
That's an RPO action.
Yeah.
So how much harder does an RPO make your job?
It doesn't make it too much harder, because our offensive line coach doesn't like us reading too much into it, trying to predict if they hand it off or not. He kind of says it's the cost of doing business if you get a penalty for going downfield on a read play. And we usually get a call from the quarterback. If it's like a before the play, I'm going to get rid of it. And he gives us a call to know, hey, don't go downfield. But most of the time, I mean, it's kind of just, if you get a penalty for going downfield, that's just the cost of doing business.
Because this is something that, you're seeing a lot more in the NFL. For example, I think Doug Peterson really kind of showed that, you can do that at that level efficiently. They did a lot of that, the read option type stuff too with, RG3 back in Washington. Kyle Shanahan utilized that a lot. Mm-hmm. But Doug Peterson really was the guy with Philadelphia back in 2017, the Super Bowl run, that really perpetuated a lot of the RPO action, showed that you can be really successful with it at the next level if you do it right. And so there's a lot of teams that like to run that look right now. Jacksonville's going to be running it a lot with Trevor Lawrence. I would imagine you'll see San Francisco running it a lot with Trey Lance, teams like that. Are those any of the teams that have, kind of started talking to you at all or anything that you've heard from?
I've done a few questionnaires with teams, and then my agent has talked to a few teams. I'm not 100% sure what all teams he has talked to. I know he's talked to like 5 or 6
Mhm.
that have reached out to him, but as of those teams, I'm not 100% sure if those teams are on that list or not.
Speed option. And Rose kind of beats you right there too.
Yeah,
Looks like kind of
and my
got you with a little bit of a misdirection.
yeah, and we made the adjustment later in the game that if they line up in there and we're pretty sure that they're coming, we can just cut them.
So that was what caused that was you weren't sure if he was coming on that play or not, and so that's why you reacted a little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this game in particular is a really good evaluation one, because Iowa State runs a lot of, schemes that they're running at the professional level now, right?
Yeah.
And it's because, the Clemson guys, a lot of people who run that style of defense, they've all gone to Iowa State and they've studied it there, you know, and you got NFL teams now going to these places and studying. So this is the variety of stunts, the way that they kind of shift and the different, alignments and things that they use is a lot of the same stuff that we're seeing in the NFL now. Um, when how well, do you think that you understand defenses and how to, when you turn on the tape, what do you immediately go to? What do you kind of start figuring out? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I kind of think that like when it came to Big 12 defenses, I thought I knew them pretty well. Whether it was an Okie front, a 4-man front, over under front, different box structures, I thought I knew it pretty well. So kind of going into a game, that'd be like one of the first things I'd look at. What kind of front do they run? Do they run a over front, under front? Do they run an Okie? What kind of Okie? Is it an Okie stack? And after I break that kind of stuff down, start looking at personnel. Who am I going to be blocking the most? What's their favorite moves? They have good feet. Do they have a tell? Different stuff like that when it came to when it came to their style of play. Seeing for like a play like that, that's like a predetermined. We're going to sell inside zone, but it's a pass play from the start.
Okay. There's some recovery right there.
Yeah.
Here we'll go to the next angle. And this is that adjustment that you're talking about. Because 34 is a linebacker, is he not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you picked up on that immediately. He kind of beats you with his first step, but you got back into it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start getting beat like that, what's your go-to? What are you trying to do to minimize that and get and collect that recovery?
So when I first start, I that right there was a full slide protection. So I'm keeping my eyes in my gap just in case 58 slants outside the tackle, linebacker kind of plays inside. I keep my eye on 23. I think that's Rose right there.
Yeah, it's
I
Rose.
keep my eyes in my gap just in case he slants into the left guard and 55 loops back, and I'm there to pick it up. When I see him go away and no one's coming, that's when I focus all my attention on 34, and I don't have to worry about someone coming back into my gap. Like that's my guy.
I don't know how that pass got completed. Now this is just utterly confusing, I think, if you're trying to block this. Because you pulled on this one.
Yeah. So this is another predetermined. We have a run play that matches up really similar with this, and it's a predetermined pass play. So it does change my pull a little bit. I can't be as aggressive. I can't just fly in there and try to level the D end. I got to be kind of smart with it, so I'm under control and can get locked up with him. But I kind of look at it as win early to win late. If I sell run and can get hooked up quick before he knows it's a pass play, that helps me out big time and for the rest of the play.
And another pull, and this time he goes into a long drop. You got the running back to help too. That's a really interesting protection. That's a pro style, actually.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. That design, the shift over, you slide, running back helps you. Looks like the running back was going to leak out, but he already saw that Skyler was running.
Well, like beforehand on that, I think I'm taking the D end. If the D end plays outside, the tackle is not to mess with him. He's just supposed to work down, and I'm taking that D end. But since the D end slants inside and the linebacker adds on, we basically just change jobs. I take the linebacker.
It really kind of stinks not having the run plays for this game to kind of go into and show that, the what you talked about. You have a run set that looks very similar, and kind of see that stuff. But the NFL doesn't like to share some of their stuff, man. I'm like, I have this right now. Yep, an RPO or read option, I think. This is an audible too, is it not? Or is that a predetermined shift?
I think it's a predetermined shift.
Oh, okay. It's a really good sell by Skyler too.
Mm-hmm.
So this one's interesting. So it's your slide protection again. And they didn't bite on it very well at all.
No. Yeah, it was another one of
You were
those.
kind of you were dealing with is that Orion Vance? 34?
I thought that was Rose 23.
Oh yeah, no, it's Rose. You're right. 34 was coming inside. Just recognize the slide right away. So how do you deal with speed? Like if it's pretty I think it's pretty obvious watching tape that speed's kind of your calling card. If you can get a really good start against you, they're going to beat you. So what is your counter to that?
Don't let them get a good start. Have my start be better. Set off the ball quicker. Get my hands on them quicker. I mean, it doesn't matter how fast somebody is if I can get my hands on them.
Here's that linebacker shift you're talking about. I guess when that play kind of breaks down like that and you start looking for somewhere to go, like where is your mentality? What's your thought process when that starts happening?
So initially, when we have, I think it was a slide right linebacker in the right A gap, my guy in the B gap, and then that D end kind of in the C gap for the tackle. We're basically those are our three guys, and when that D end drops off, tackle bumps me off and sinks back into that three tech. I can try to bump off that center. At that time, it was too late. Our center had already kind of committed to that guy. So
Yeah.
I kind of just, just look for anybody that is coming through. It was kind of a tough deal with Josh and our running back right there because those guys kind of crossed, and that's who our running back would take is that that other linebacker lined
That
up in
late
the A gap.
the linebacker coming late
Yeah,
because he looks like he's about to drop.
because Josh would take that 3 tech, and then Cooper Beebe would take the D end. Well, then the D end drops, and Cooper sinks back pretty quick, and Josh tries to get the linebacker. Well, then they have that linebacker, and then another guy add on. So then it was just,
Yeah,
yeah, it
because
was.
they brought 34. That's Vance,
Mm-hmm.
and then they brought that. I'm thinking he's like a kind of a rover kind of guy. You know,
Yeah,
like they brought him late over back down through the A gap, and that just kind of messed everything up.
yeah.
Scotty made a good throw, still got the first down to work through it. You know, considering all things, I think this offense had some really interesting stuff that you guys would run. And it's not going to be your glorified, Sean McVay style, Lincoln Riley, whatever, like it's not that crazy type of, I guess what people call like an innovation offense, but it's a really solid offense and it's kind of fun to watch. See. So what are you doing when, you're in that kind of a spot right there where you don't really have anybody and you're just kind of floating? Like, what are you looking for?
So on that right there, our right tackle gave me a call to kind of tell me he's going to jump set that guy. So my reaction with a zeroed out nose, the center and the left guard are taking him. I'm going to be right there to help the tackle just in case he gets beat right away, because you're more susceptible to get beat inside on a jump set. So I'm setting immediately right there, ready to help. And he didn't get beat on it, so I'm kind of sitting there waiting, seeing if looking back now I could have bumped back on, I think it's 58, but I was more focused on the DN, just knowing that he gave me that jump set call, that I was more focused on the DN because that was a bigger threat because that guy was in my gap.
Yep. Okay, so pocket starts moving like this.
Because initially I thought that guy was adding on and I was going to have to pick up number 9 coming off. So I had to take a really, really deep set. And then he peeled off with, I think it was the running back. So
Hmm.
then I was just kind of out there to help Christian Duffy with number 9. And then I don't really have eyes in the back of my head. So I was kind of just going
Yeah.
off the movement of the defenders, kind of running around. Where are they trying to go? Can I get in their way?
The finish. Got a really good jump on that gap. Was that 58?
Yep.
Is that kind of like a frustration thing when you finish like that? Or is that just kind of a, hey, you got me once, that's it?
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things that they're on the ground. Kind of, it's like a sticking point with them. Kind of make them think about it a little bit.
And so here you're watching the zero. He kind of plays like a contain, it looks like.
Yeah, I think this was a longer drive, so I think he was getting a little tired. I don't know if that was supposed to be his job or if he was supposed to be rushing and he was just tired. But yeah, we were doing 4-man slide to the left, and that was kind of just my gap, and he didn't really seem interested in rushing. He kind of just wanted to run side to side.
And Malik Knowles made a really great catch right there off the deflection too, which
Yeah, he's a heck of a receiver. He'll be one to definitely watch next year when the
oh yeah,
2023 draft rolls around.
oh yeah, I'm looking forward to watching him
Yeah,
a lot more extensively because what game? I think it was the LSU game I was watching, and he had an outstanding game that day too.
yeah.
Okay, I think I'm going to switch over to that real quick. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it because I don't have all 22.
Okay.
But so everybody talks about the SEC, right? Like the SEC is the premier conference in college football. And I'm one of those people that are very, maybe it's because I live in the, the Southeast and I'm a big Tennessee fan. So, SEC nostalgia is kind of the thing here. But I don't, I think even looking at the numbers and looking at, how people have produced, especially out of the trenches, this is the premier conference in college football. So can you talk a little bit about what it was like going up against LSU and, from a talent level, how much was it more difficult for you, or did you have a harder time in the Big 12, with some of the guys that you played against?
Honestly, I thought I played better opponents in the Big 12, but it was kind of difficult going into it because we didn't really know who we were going to face. They had several guys declare. They had several guys on the COVID list and injury list. So I mean, we didn't even know who was starting at quarterback before the game, or at least LSU didn't know who was starting at quarterback. That doesn't really affect us, but that was basically how the entire defense was too. We didn't have any idea who was starting at linebacker, defensive line, and we didn't have very much film on those guys. So going into the game, it wasn't super known on who we were going to be facing in their personnel, so you couldn't. It irritated me because I couldn't do the research that I like doing and seeing their personnel, their moves, and what to expect and stuff like that.
99 for LSU. I want to say that's Glenn Logan. I'm doing my double check here real quick before I declare that. LSU. I think that's who that was. Because on this play, this is another really big dude, who's power, basically. That's what he's been able to do.
Yeah.
Um, okay, cool. This is perfect right here. Because this is the depth chart before the game. Oh, no. Okay, my bad. Jakelin Roy. And he's another big dude, too, actually. He's 6'4", 300. And I mean, I think he got you can't really see it. It's not an end zone view, which really sucks. But he got a pretty good jump, beat through the right tackle. You still kind of held him off pretty well, So
Yeah.
I think Farrell was in this game too, wasn't he?
He was one of the guys that declared and didn't play. Him and their middle linebacker, and then I think they had two corners that were hurt throughout the year and didn't play in this game. And yeah, they had a bunch of guys that I think they probably had a good 4 or 5 guys that can play on defense.
Yeah, I guess it was Roy I was thinking about then. So I'm looking at the depth chart and yeah. And then just the turmoil going on with that program at the time too, when you guys played them, with Coach O's last game. And at the time, I think Lincoln Riley was rumored to be going there to be the head coach.
Yeah.
So there was all that going on, or like maybe that had already happened already. He'd already gone to USC. I forget. Um, but it just seemed like a lot of crazy nonsense going on at the program too. But still, so you said you didn't have the time, I mean, not the time, but the prep because you didn't know who you guys were going up against. So
Yeah.
how did you approach, this game play by play, trying to, you know, figure out what you're doing exactly?
Well, we could kind of tell off body types and stuff like that, what kind of players they were going to be. I mean, you can see by Zero, he's a real tall, lengthy guy. Doesn't weigh a ton, so he wasn't going to be a big bull rush guy, but he was going to be a long arm to spin move type guy. And we kind of just went through like that, and went through and did the research like that. And yeah, this was a heck of a play by Malik.
Yeah, I don't know how he pulled this off. And Malik's awesome.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a bigger body type too, which kind of makes it even more interesting. I wonder if they're going to use him more next year, like, like a Debo Samuel. He's kind of got that athleticism. They were physical though. They were
Yeah.
high energy, at least in the beginning of the game. I think when they got into the later stages, they were a little bit, you know, worn
Yeah.
down a little bit.
Definitely were getting frustrated by the end of the game.
They were getting frustrated by the end of the first quarter against you guys because they were starting fights left and right. And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. They were the ones starting fights, but we ended up having like 7 personal fouls, and I think they had one, and it was an
Yeah.
awesome personal foul.
Yeah, that was not right. But see, I like this one too. I mean, it's just too bad that, they reacted really well to that screen set, but like, you're moving down the field here, man. Like you're looking for somebody to go hit.
Yeah, I was looking around trying to find where he was going so I could kind of get lined up with him because Malik is a little bit faster than I am. So I was trying to get lined up. I figured
Yeah.
he'd catch me after a few yards.
See, I have no idea how they didn't get a personal foul right there. But this game was kind of crazy like that. But yeah, anyways. So I really like your tape, man. I think there's a lot of really good promising, like I said, there's tools there and stuff. And then there's the progression over the last couple of years as well. Now knowing also, I wasn't tracking that you didn't play offensive line like your entire life. Um so that kind of makes a little bit more sense now too. But yeah, I think as a developmental kind of guy, like you've got a pretty good shot at making it somewhere. And if you can stick around for a couple of years and really start to develop, that some of the finer points in the technique, I think
Yeah.
there's I think there's a really good shot for you, man.
And I think one thing that kind of sticks out to me is my play in 2020 versus 2021 is, I think I told you when I talked to you a few days ago, I think it's night and day difference technique wise, comfortability. I mean, I think it's just, and I think if I just keep working on technique, getting more comfortable, and doing things like that, I can keep getting better and better. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all I want. I just want to keep working and keep getting better and better, and doing that.
And I agree, man. I think especially just from a pass protecting set, what you do as a pass protector, it's completely different this year. And I think that's the promising part, is you normally want to go with a guy that's going to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? He's got the progression each year, right? He gets better each year and
Mm-hmm.
it's steady. And when you can do that, people are more inclined, to give you that time, that patience. I mean, this is probably a terrible example because it's a quarterback, but I mean, look at Jalen Hurts right now, right? Like that's a guy, he's just gotten better consistently every year, a little
Yeah.
bit better. And he's sticking around. somehow they didn't trade for a quarterback this year, right? Because they had Jalen Hurts. So
Yeah.
that goes across all the position groups. If you can just steadily improve a little bit every year and just keep getting better, you're going to get those opportunities, and people are going to give you a chance more and more often than not. So
And that's kind of what like I've talked to my parents about is like whether it's drafted, free agent. I mean, as long as I get an opportunity, I don't care one way or another. I mean, yeah, it'd be awesome to hear my name get called on draft day, and that would be insane. But as long as I get an opportunity, I don't really care.
so this is not intending to be disrespectful or anything, but let's say that you might have to play like the XFL, the USFL. Is that an option for you?
I think so. I mean, I would definitely sit down and talk to my girlfriend and my family and talk with them about it. But I definitely wouldn't say it's out of the equation.
Now, I don't know how much longer the USFL will be around, but it does look like the XFL has got some really good momentum moving too. So we'll see. Um, but that's just kind of a curious. There's the ELF too in Europe that's seen a lot of success so far. Um, I mean, the thing that was funny about watching that this past year was like because it's going on the summer. I was deployed. I was in Afghanistan, Kuwait while it was going on, so I was in that time slot too. So it wasn't like trying to turn on a game at 3 a.m. here where it's 6 p.m. over there or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was funny because all the American players were absolutely dominating it. Like there was a career backup corner from Clemson that intercepted like 3 passes in the first game. It was just absolutely dominant. And you were just kind of sitting there like, oh man, this is going to be rough. No, Kayvon Turpin out of, you might remember him out of TCU, that wide receiver,
Yeah.
he was killing it over there too after killing it in the spring league. But, you know, I'm just curious, like, because I'm not saying you're not going to make it, but in the event, because this is such a deep class and
Yeah.
it's really because of the COVID year, and you got the super seniors, and you have more talent in this class consolidated than normal. You know, you might have to go somewhere else to get a different opportunity. Like to continue that career to get that shot. And these different leagues are going to create those opportunities. You know, it was just curious if that was something that you're kind of starting to think about or even consider at this point. But
I mean, and it's one thing like I have all those, and I mean, I have a degree that I'm passionate about. So, I mean, my worst case scenario is I have a degree in construction science and management that I love. So, my worst case scenario is I end up doing a job that I love. So, I mean, I'm not too worried about it one way or another. I mean, the man upstairs has a plan for me. I don't know what it is yet, but whether that's in construction, football, whatever it is.
I like that. I like that, man. That's touching. Getting sentimental over here. Ben, it's good having you on here, man. It was really good to just kind of start to understand what you guys are doing a little bit more, because I don't have your playbook. I'm not, I can't see what you guys exactly are doing half the time.
Yeah. When I was trying to go through without giving away calls and stuff, I don't think my offensive line coach would like it if I was out here giving out our playbook
Yeah,
during
probably not.
interviews. So
Might be a
yeah.
problem. But it's good to understand a little bit more what you're doing on each individual play and kind of understand what the concept was, and seeing it differently, and that's why I like sitting down watching tape with people like you and you guys, is because you guys played it, you guys know what you're doing, you're telling me what you're seeing, and then I'm kind of seeing it too and being, oh, okay, that makes sense. I think that's not enlightening. It's not just enlightening for me, but anybody else who's viewing, like they can learn a lot about football just kind of talking to you, you know, or watching you talk about it. And that's kind of the idea. And then also potentially, talking with some people around the NFL and stuff when I went to Indianapolis for the combine a couple weeks ago, is I was like, hey, I want to do this. Is this something that you guys would potentially watch and use, as for interviews? And if you can't get a hold of this guy or whatever, because you're limited on your interviews, and they're like, yeah, we'd use it for sure. I was like, cool. So hopefully, man, it helps you out. That's the idea. So
Well, thank you.
I appreciate the time, man, and the knowledge that you shared.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a blast.
Awesome, dude. You take it easy today. All right.
Thanks, you too.